Hello, welcome to the Sam Max Season 2 commentary track. My name is Brendan Ferguson. I'm a designer.
My name is Chuck Jordan. I was a writer.
My name is Heather Logus. I was a designer.
I'm Dave Bogan, art director.
This is Dave Grossman, designer slash design director.
Mr. Spatula.
So, episode 1, this is the one that takes place at the North Pole with Santa Claus. And I remember that we wanted to start the season off with a bang. There were a few things we wanted to do. One is to have a, exciting Indiana Jones-esque beginning. Somebody suggested the idea of a giant robot rampaging, and then the idea to tie it in with the that robot from last season that walked by the window in episode 105. And we said, yes, that's perfect. And we had already had the idea to make it Christmas themed, so we wanted to start it off with that. That was an errant gift.
And then also Flint Paper, we wanted to find a way to introduce him.
Exactly. So we were trying to accomplish about 17 different things in this one scene, and it definitely reads that way. And then real quick, let me just mention that, and also one other thing. Oh, don't forget, he's still the president. And
Oh yeah, hey look, it's Flint.
But yeah, we had to. One thing is that for episode 2, we wanted to set up the idea that Mr. Spatula was evil, and so somehow we needed to make it memorable, even though you were only going to have just a few moments with Mr. Spatula, that he had actually turned evil, so there was a good reason for him later to be somehow a demon form or something like that.
Now, season 2, we did a lot differently than season 1, where we actually mapped out how the story arcs would go ahead of time, so we could set up things from the very beginning, like Mr. Spatula's evil.
Right, exactly. We knew for the whole season basically where we wanted to go, and what we wanted for Mr. Spatula was we kind of had this idea that ultimately we're going to end up in the afterlife, and so we wanted to have some sort of kind of indirect manifestation of the goings on in hell. And so we thought one way to do it is to have somebody come from hell and torment you, and you wouldn't necessarily recognize that per se at the time, but then later it would kind of connect together.
Better hurry down if we want to loot the
Another function of this robot was to reorganize the street outside
Right.
Max's office,
that's a
which
very important function.
people on the forums had asked actually why we did that, and the main reason was just to sort of put things closer together so you wouldn't spend quite as much time walking back and forth.
Right. I mean, ultimately we wanted to open Stinkies, and so the amount that you walk is pretty much the same as season 1, but it just feels a little bit tighter because we just shoved Sybil's into the middle of the street there.
And we just wanted an excuse to change the street around, too, so it felt like a different environment than in the first season.
I think by the end of season 6, we'll have eventually gotten all the way down the street, and we can turn a corner.
Another interesting thing about the robot is we released a trailer in between season 1 and season 2, and it's kind of almost a nice little foreshadowing event to this first opening cutscene.
Absolutely.
The one with the robot.
I gotta say, I love the opening credit sequence for this season. Lots.
Yeah, and you can shoot all these things.
Yeah,
in case you haven't figured that out.
I really like the opening credit sequence for this season.
Apparently the music wasn't actually written specifically for the credits, which surprised me, because it's perfect.
There's the
So-
North
There they
Pole.
are.
Yeah, here's another one where we were thinking all the way at the beginning of the season how we wanted this thing to end up, and it just seemed like we had talked about this idea that you would go to hell and that Satan would end up not being the guy that you would try to take down, and so it just seemed very funny that the most evil imaginable people are the soda poppers, and so we said the thing is, for people who have not played season 1, how can we make sure you know who those people are? And so we had the idea, well, there seems to be some kind of connection between soda poppers and elves, and just generally short people all kind of hang out at the North Pole. So we just shoved them there, and we're hoping that it would just read as kind of random enough. So it was very strange feeling to read everybody's intense hatred at their sore thumbedness in this episode, wondering if later that would make them happy when they realized there was a purpose or not.
I just want to say I saw a mention of the casual swearing in this episode. Somebody was complaining about that, but it was very intentional for the first time you see the soda poppers for Max to say, what the hell are they doing here? Because we wouldn't mention hell ever again until we got to the end of the season. So.
It's an interesting theory, but I'm not convinced.
And I also really liked about this episode the Thing influence from John Carpenter's The Thing, which is something that seemed just really fun to do.
Yeah, that was a fun way to think about the North Pole.
And the intensity of what's going on there, and the artist really did a fantastic job with the outside of this environment. It's so beautiful. And
the
also
escalator
desolate
tree.
and scary.
There was a lot of talk about the escalator tree, as I recall.
Yeah, that was.
Big stink about
This
how are we
is
gonna
a
get those
perfect
characters to
example
walk
of an animator going awry right here. You know, it solved a lot of problems for us technically to get them up to the chimney top. It was just a way for an animator to get a little inside joke in there, which really means nothing. But that's how the elevator tree happened.
That ho ho ho, I'm on
Escalator
fire.
tree.
Actually, I remember because we had set that scene up where Max would fall down the thing and he would say ho ho ho, I'm on fire. But then it ended up getting cut for some reason, and I remember specifically going back to that one thing when I played through the game. I just couldn't take it that he didn't say ho ho ho, I'm on fire. I said no, I will personally make sure this works.
Finally, draw the hell
Oh, that was originally like Walesso, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
using personal information.
One of our writers for this episode, Ian Dallas, was saying that was a little bit too obscure, he thought. And so we changed to Roman Polanski, and everybody went, who's Roman Polanski? So apparently there are no really famous Poles, so try to step it up, Poland, if you can.
And then this is another place where we really did a lot of thinking about how the recurring environments could be different this time around, because we didn't want you to feel like you were just walking around the season 1 environments all over again. So for Bosco, we really ramped his paranoia up.
Yeah, and this is again is kind of kicking off his whole arc for the entire season. Just the instant you walk in that door, you know something's going on.
Right. Yeah, last season we went with the whole paranoia theme, so this season we try to really set him apart by making him very paranoid. No, but actually
But
to me,
we
just
brought it to a whole new level, though.
yeah, we did kind of wrap up that story finally.
And a nice kind of refreshing visual change also.
Yeah, just change the color of a room.
Oh, that was everybody's favorite line. I think my package is the bomb.
Sam, you poor naive fool. Don't you realize the time for disguises is past?
Yeah, you poor naive
Thank
fool.
goodness. The
Don't you
disguises were
realize
getting a little bit short.
Yeah.
Disguise could never
I personally could go on forever with disguises, but that's just me.
them?
That wasn't just a running joke. That was a.
That was me living out my own fantasies.
But this ain't a store no more, man.
I love that too. The bathroom door with the crazy lasers all over it.
Yeah, I think this season really started kicking off our putting more focus and attention on actual effects in our games, and
Yeah, the
you'll
effects
see
are
as
outstanding.
the episodes come one by one, everything gets a little more complex and crazy and nicer looking, especially by the end episode with all the snowflakes.
Do you have
and
any
craziness.
inflatable arms capable of being used as replacements for your real arms?
Didn't I just tell you this ain't a store no more?
So for this episode, we had two writers that we brought in. One was Jeff Lester, whom we used last season. He did a lot of this dialogue with Bosco and around the street, did a great job. And we also had, as I mentioned, Ian Dallas, who came and helped out with the design and writing for this episode and also the next episode. And thank goodness for those guys. They did an outstanding job. And we were really pressed when we were making this episode. We were doing episode 1 and 2 essentially at the same time. And it was a nightmare. And then luckily we brought Chuck in. We got him just in time, and he was able to do a script doctoring pass on this episode.
Yeah, I was going through just trying to make everything sound consistent, and it would have been totally impossible to do if it hadn't had so much stuff in place. Because, I mean, to this day, I still conflate episode 2 and episode 1. Can't remember which is which. I did want to mention that, yeah, 2 of my best gags in the whole season are from this episode. That Jeff wrote one about the, was I a fortune teller or a sports therapist? And
The crystal balls one.
Ian wrote the one about the elf saying, it's always in the last place I look, like my tumor.
Those were good lines.
The Stinkies. We never close.
I liked how you said those were two of your best lines.
I'm
Oh,
of your
did I
best
say
ones.
two of my favorite? Is what I meant to say.
Those were two of my best. All of my best ones were by Chuck.
Yeah, that's what my best work is always done by Heather.
I did all the good stuff.
That does sound like Grandpa.
This was really, really fun.
Ready for the next round
The
of
interior
trivia.
Stinky's
And the
Diner
question
here,
is,
and
when did the War of 1812
Stinky herself.
begin? A. 1812. B.
And
20,000 years
she
BC.
originally was
C. March
imagined a
3rd,
little bit differently,
2004.
but then
D.
Steve
Bangers and
Purcell,
mash.
I think, got
Okay, let's hear
super
everyone's
excited and
answers.
showed up with a drawing of her
Let's
looking
start
like
with
this
you,
one day. And
Sybil.
Yeah, the
I chose
fish
A.
theme.
Of
Yeah,
course
she's-
you did,
she
dear.
turned out pretty cool.
Because you're wrong.
Also, I love this trivia contest puzzle because it's an example of the kind of thing we do fairly often, where it's not solved at all in the way that you would expect when you're first presented with it. It
Right.
comes across, oh, it's all about trivia, but knowledge of actual trivia or even correct answers to the questions have nothing to do with actually solving the puzzle.
Well, this puzzle was inspired by a story that I read as a boy. I actually forget exactly how it goes, but essentially, some boy is before the king, and the king wants to put him to death, but he says, in a show of seeming fairness, I'll write on 2 slips of paper either death or life, and you can choose one of the slips of paper, and you'll have whatever fate you choose. But the king writes death on both slips of paper, and the boy knows it. So what he does is he takes one of the slips of paper, eats it, and says, "Let's see the other one." And that way we'll know what my fate was that I chose. So since death's on the other one, he knows he should get life, and so everybody they have to let him go free. So this was the same idea, was that you would force all the wrong answers, so that the only one left would have to be right.
My lucky glove cuts.
Jimmy Two Teeth, what are you and your unsavory pals
And there are
doing
mariachis
to
in this
burn down
season
us
too,
with this
apparently.
robot?
The first rule is.
Yeah,
that a mariachi?
they keep seeming to come up.
without Husker this robot.
Hey!
So that was another one where we certainly did plan that they would be the guys in episode 4, so that this whole thing that they would just keep reoccurring for everybody's
I always thought
birthday
being
was
shipless and lazy
was
its own
intentional from the
reward.
beginning.
They're giving out trophies now?
Boxing championship, wise guy.
And we also had this idea of converting the robot into some kind of rat haven.
It's the super exclusive
Possibly a
war
casino.
action figure with extra.
Hey, where'd the boxing go?
There are pieces missing.
See the box.
The boxing was great.
That was my favorite minigame of the entire.
I never thought we were going to get that in. In the design that we wrote for this episode, it said, and then right here is where it would launch into a boxing minigame if we had a time to do that. Anyway, at the end of it, the thing comes flying out. But our production staff really worked wonders on this episode and the whole season. They got it done. It's amazing.
Mark Darren.
Mark Darren.
And Mark Darren, who is now working on Homestar Runner, he programmed that game.
Well, he's
Did a great job.
Let's grab the package and let's get.
Which was highly inspired by Punch Out.
It's the supersized
Indeed so. Punch Out was one of my favorite games for the original Nintendo and in the arcade.
Didn't they say that we actually got the voice actor for the orial Punch-Out to do the voiceover
Did we
for
get
this?
him for this?
Yeah. Gosh, I'm blanking on his name right now. But he was the voice for the arcade Punch-Out when he's the guy that says body blow, body blow.
There ain't no place
Yeah,
safe.
he works with BA Sound.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
done other things for us as well. We'll come up in the credits.
Oh,
Yes, I'm
is that
blanking
J.S.
too.
Gilbert? The voice of the dragon
I
from
think
Bone,
it's
yeah.
J.S. Gilliam.
Yeah.
Walk
Yeah.
out that door demon-free.
Yeah, he was really good. I did have to coach him a lot. I said, no, it's more like body blow, body blow.
Wait,
And this guy is fantastic.
Which guy?
no.
The monster.
Oh, yeah.
Remember Dave Bogan showing me drawings of this guy, and it was just so fantastically exciting.
He's pretty cool, but he turned out to be quite a nightmare.
How come his gun isn't in there?
He's a monster.
There's a back.
Yes.
But he was very,
You didn't
I
ship
really
us
wanted him to be some kind of tentacly,
Very important.
like
Make sure you have
H.P.
the
Lovecraft
spirits of
inspired
Christmas to contain the
creature,
beast
but he also
or
kind of had to
use
look
food.
like he was made out of jello.
It's
So-
up to you to save Christmas.
I also think the elves were a pretty successful design. Actually,
Yeah.
the balance of cuteness to creepiness is, I think, pretty perfect.
It's pretty much all through the teeth.
Yeah.
Assuming you want exceedingly high creepiness factor, in which case, yes, it was perfect.
It's always a
Know us?
The balance is always a little off.
Those who have ever ruined Christmas.
So this is actually the plot line that I remember wanting from the beginning for this episode, that you would do some kind of Christmas Carol thing, because I'm always really interested in finding ways to revisit places in a different light. So I was really intrigued by the idea of going to Christmas past and future and so on. Of course, we ended up then making an entire episode about time travel, so it was a little bit of overkill, but what can I say? I still like
And
it.
automobiles and federal statutes.
It is your own selfish actions that have brought this to pass.
The voice of Santa is Terry McGovern. I think that might be my favorite performance from the season. I really like Santa. He does all the Santa voices
You
here.
will need the combined help of all three
He
of
also
us
teaches
to
acting. So.
defeat.
And he's the guy who said, "Look, sir,
We will
droids,"
show you
in the first
three
Star Wars.
Christmases you've ruined.
Wow.
Set them right.
Yeah, that line was written in the script too, but he just couldn't hit it the way we wanted to cut it.
I have to get some air.
He's obstinate about it.
We
Look, sir,
decided-
droids. No.
Let's see what Stinky's getting from Santa.
This
What about-
episode is so good because it goes everywhere. Like there's so much stuff that happens.
It's full of coal.
That's what
Yeah,
you
that's
get for lying
good
all
for
the
people at
time.
home, bad
What
for
do
the
you
people that
think
had to
you
make
get
it.
for reckless
Yeah.
It's kind of a sampler for all the remaining episodes, because there's a little bit of time travel. There's a demon. There's
I thought this was a fantastic
Horror.
effect.
You bet.
the candy
The
cane time
candy
portal.
cane portals, yeah, those are really neat.
How many different ways can you do a portal?
Well, we ended up
We'll
somehow
find out,
having
apparently.
portals in every episode, and John and Marco, who have to make the effects, they were not liking us.
Here we are in your office in the
We were not at all inspired by the game of the same.
I remember this.
Wasn't.
This is when we had to retrieve the toy mafia's meatball
Somehow
sandwich that
spinning
Yeah,
was
that's
void
right.
Thanks to Jerry.
spirals keep
Do
making
we
their
get to
way
beat up
into
Leonard
our
some more?
No way,
visuals.
Max. These
Right,
guys
Dave
can't see
Grossman was mentioning that Portal, the game, was a lot of comparisons were drawn to that in episode 2, actually. And it was, I remember distinctly, as soon as we finished the design for episode 2, that somebody read it and said, "Hey, this is just like that game Portal that's going to come out." I said, "Portal? What's that?" So it was unfortunate.
And of course, everybody said it was clearly inspired by this game. It was like, yes, we went into the future.
Yeah, we unfortunately have to make these games a long time before they actually get released.
It's hopeless. The doctors say his Tourette's
I
syndrome
think Timmy
will
is
kill him
the
if they
best
don't operate
YouTube
soon.
fodder.
Don't
in the entire season.
Angels.
It's all a bust,
I just
Mary.
can't.
Every
It's just-
time I try to
not
make an
laugh.
honest living,
Sorry.
Sam and Max smack me down.
I can't stop laughing. Tiny kills me.
I know, man.
The
And you
best
know,
is-
I think I didn't. I'm pretty sure I didn't like the Tourette syndrome or the swearing or any of that stuff. But in execution, it was just so funny.
I think it turned out to be one of the best things that we've ever done.
Yeah.
Well, then
Hilarious.
of course, we did actually get a letter from an actual sufferer of Tourette's syndrome who pointed out that we had been somewhat insensitive at her.
Yeah, our depiction of Tourette syndrome for you people at home is not intended to be authentic. No small rats actually have Tourette's experience these symptoms. But yeah, I kind of agree with Heather. At the time, I was thinking, well, this Tourette's thing is a bit overdone, but I don't know. It just seemed to be the thing that was going to be perfect as his disease here.
I think it's a nice little slice of life.
It's just so easy to make it be funny. I mean, you don't have to do anything. Just write beep, 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 beep. Oh, you beep, beep, beep in the script, and it just.
The best is when he just goes off on a tear.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Joey Kamen, who does the voice of Tiny Timmy as well as Bosco and more, he's really good at swearing. That's his strength. And he would just go off, like we just record the line pretty straight for a while, and then we say just say whatever comes to mind. And those are the ones that Julian delivered generally, where he just went on for an entire minute.
It's in the middle of all the beeps. You hear that. Oh.
He has to get his breath back.
I thought you were gonna shout.
What?
So this whole puzzle and story around Jimmy was maybe a little bit convoluted, but it worked out.
Don't pick at it.
And
Max.
I liked
It's
it
too hard to
because
get back in the socket.
we wanted to take some of the characters that we had previously and see them in a new light. And this was a chance to give Jimmy a family and some aspirations other than just being a general
Thanks for the glove, Jimmy.
thug.
I'm feeling full of the Christmas spirit already.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
When we had Christmas Past, I didn't intentionally hope that it was going to be in their office since we've been there plenty of times, but it just felt like Jimmy having a family and having there be some connection to what we're seeing in the present day seemed like it was going to be the strongest story. And like I said, I really want to do this Christmas Carol business, and Jimmy seemed the best guy to expand on his character.
In the circle, like they have to steal the glove from Jimmy so they can give it to Jimmy
Come on, son. Your dad's gonna go punch out
because
some
he
bums.
lost it.
Right,
I
right.
can't-
So we had the
still
whole
can't
time
keep
loop
it straight.
thing. You need to steal the glove from Jimmy in order to give him the glove.
Dude, you saved Christmas past. So let's move on back to the present.
Remember the complaint about writing for Timmy Two Teeth was always that he just sounded like a kid who kept swearing, and that we really wanted to emphasize that it was a disease and it was like he was coughing.
Witness how your reckless carelessness hurts those.
He crossed out asterisks.
This isn't the present.
The complaint was consistently, he just sounds like a foul-mouthed little kid. Make him sound like he's sick.
I know that. Just give it a minute to catch up.
It was really fun going back and thinking about all the things in the past that
See how he slumps in his saddle?
that Sam and Max have done that were
Max, you don't know
mean
what
and
that'll do.
evil and terrible that they would have to go back and fix.
Choke a toddler,
And there
blind
were
a toddler,
plenty of those.
Yes.
eviscerate?
Well, it looks like nothing happened anyway. Let's go. Oh, no.
Seriously, we had a totally boss.
I remember this whole sequence was actually one that I was not terribly fond of. I remember that I was actually speaking with Ian about a different puzzle here with Sybil and Lincoln. Something I know that we kept wanting to put in a Ouija board in here somewhere,
Yeah.
somehow communing with spirits. I was really disappointed that we couldn't get that. It just seemed like something that was really going to be fun to. You as the spirit were somehow able to communicate with people on the thing. We just could not figure out any good puzzle or activity to do with that.
Immediate evac.
So what?
And mostly I hate it because now I have to listen to myself talk.
Oh my, no. Have you seen them? They're awful. You have to get rid of them.
Oh boy, I'll go get my stomping boots.
No.
And it was a bit strange here because we wanted to have it in Christmas present, but somehow we wanted to show this idea that Sam and Max have been causing all these problems, and you need to solve your own mistakes. So somehow we needed to show, here is what you did in order to cause the problem. So we actually had to go a bit back in the past, and I think we were debating at some point, should I make reference to the fact that, oh, we're seeing ourselves from a bit ago. And we waffle on that, and then I think, Chuck, you decided, no, it's just going to be too strange if they don't somehow comment on the fact that we know that we're a bit in the past, let it catch up.
Yeah, there's a little
Wow,
bit of
the
that.
future is hot.
And so am I, Sam. Seriously, check future me
Some
out.
great foreshadowing here.
Yep.
Right.
Very, very strong foreshadowing.
Well, Max, unless we learn how to fly,
Is
we're
this
destined
foreshadowing?
to spend the remainder
The
of our lives on a tiny
so
island.
again, we knew where we wanted to end up. It was kind of, we had to make it obviously characteristic of hell, but at the same time, it seems enough like it could be a volcano or something else that there's a certain amount of ambiguity there.
Sorry, buddy. I already ate
This
it.
was
Just your
also
average
hard
ordinary
because
bit of lava.
yeah, this was hard because we wanted to foreshadow, but we also didn't really know what was going to happen when you wound up in hell,
Right.
or what you were going to do there, or any of that. So we had to kind
Right.
of do this in such a way that gave us some flexibility down the road.
Right.
You know, Max, we could
So
find a way to
basically,
get
episode
future
5,
selves
the
out of
entire
this
episode
place.
is just, I don't care what happens as long as sometime they end up in a pit of lava.
Yeah.
And they need a sled.
And they have to pick up a bag of pork rinds, apparently.
Yeah, we remember that actually a bit later. That was just a throwaway joke for the scene, but then for episode 5 we said, oh, because, well, we'll talk about that for episode 5. I won't get ahead of myself since we'll have plenty to talk about that.
I stopped paying attention halfway through that sentence.
I wonder if our ghosts are here guiding us right now.
Hey, past me! Check this out! Shake that thing!
Classy as always, little pal. Now let's get out of here.
Excellent.
I'm gonna miss that sexy beast. And
But yeah,
his
that's another one of these scenes that I like where you're going to see it from 2 different perspectives over the course of the season. We're always trying to milk every scene we make for all it's worth. Of course, it ends up not saving us all that much time because then we end up having to just redo it, the whole scene anyway, because of this, that, or the other. But
Is that all?
the intent was to,
Starts out with good intentions,
yeah,
which is how we ended up in hell. in
yeah,
episode 5.
that's how we paved the road, exactly.
What's he gonna do? Give him the silent treatment?
I love the whole spirits in a bottle
Oh, stop!
thing. The way you collect the spirits.
Yeah.
Never underestimate
I remember
the power
that
of
was kind of a
anti-pressure
last minute. We knew that you had to
The car started.
just to solve each of the spirit's problems, and then somehow you needed to some manifestation of, okay, I'm making progress. That seemed a good way to tie it together.
Tune out those bad vibes of destruction and get with the spirit of peace, man.
Here's another good one where it's purely a directorial decision to have all of the violence occur off screen here. Has nothing to do with wanting to save time or money.
That's brilliant. Brilliant.
Santa, you can come
And then he
down
turns
now,
into a plate
man.
of jelly.
That's about it for us. Happy New Year, everybody.
Love that candy cane
Yeah, I
tower.
love that.
Well, I hope you boys have learned your lesson.
And so yeah, this was it seems classic horror movie style, like The Thing, to have a false dawn or something. And so that was certainly part of the plan all along, to have you feel like, yay, I won, I did it, I beat the demon, and then to have some
Ho, ho, ho! Jello! Sinful.
Santa, no! Don't eat the jello!
Oh, I don't feel so good.
Actually, when Max's voice is slowed down like that, he sounds a little bit closer to
yeah,
his real voice.
yeah. Maybe we should just slow them all down.
Now what?
Poke holes in the box and keep him.
Right,
So
we
there
just
was a very cool, elaborate puzzle.
yeah,
there.
we skipped over the. Did the soda powers just appear magically? Anyway, yeah, that was our Rube Goldberg puzzle. The Incredible Machine is one of my favorite games.
Where he belongs. Under an
And,
unsuspecting child's bed.
We wanted to have that feeling at the end of you're in a toy shop and you can use all the things. And Heather actually spec'd out this puzzle, and there was even more good stuff that she thought up that unfortunately we couldn't put. It's hard to find the right balance of how convoluted can you make it within our budget and sort of thing. I think it ended up being it felt about the right length.
That was a clever thing on the label there too, where it said Lower Manitoba. I remember quite a few discussions about how to disguise the fact that the
Right.
thing had been sent from the Dakotas, which
Right.
were the soda poppers. to
I
the
don't think
government.
anybody has ever mentioned that. I never heard anybody say that Lower Manitoba is supposed to be the Dakotas.
Lower Manitoba equals the Dakotas.
I had to look that up on the map. What is just north of North Dakota? All I knew was it's Canada.
Say, Max, you think
It's
we should have
Manitoba.
waited for them to load the presents before we drove
The
off?
joke that Dave said was a hee-haw joke. I remember that.
Hee-haw.